And welcome back to Meeting of the Minds. Today we have a very special guest, Coach Buxton, who doesn't really need any kind of introduction. He knows what he's talking about. He's one of the best coaches in the world. We're excited to have him. You know, it'll be real nice. All right. We're excited to have everyone with us with another great episode of Meeting of the Minds. All right. There it is. I see him. All right, Coach, let's bring in. Go live. Connecting. With the connection sometimes. Coach, what's going on?
Gene, how you doing?
Good. How have you been during all this craziness?
I'm doing fine. Could be better.
Sure.
This is the most I've ever been off the mats in my life.
I was going to say, this has got to be some kind of record with that.
Well, it was, I think the last time was probably 2 weeks was when I was at Blair, and I used to take August off, but, this is where it is now.
That's right. Well, we do the best we can. So I guess we got to talk about Fargo right away. Fargo being canceled. What should wrestlers be thinking? What should their mindset be in your recommendation?
Well, I kind of figured that would happen. And yeah. I've been trying to tell everybody not to panic at this point and just do the things that you can control right now. And, everybody's looking to, get that grind workout in. And, there's underground private lessons going on and workouts going on in here and there. We've just shut our club down because worried about the liability for one, but, passing this disease on to a grandparent or to a younger brother or something like that. So I've tried to get everybody to calm down because there's nothing really that's pressing to get on the mats. And there are things that you can work on at this point to improve. And usually these are things that nobody even touches on. Improving their stance and motion, working on level changing, figuring out head position, working on penetration steps, outside stepping, sprawling. And, we've incorporated in our workouts, in our Zoom workouts, some band workouts, some medicine ball workouts, some agility workouts, and also some functional patterns, and trying to give people something to do when they're home. I mean, this is my wrestling room right now.
There it is.
That's my wrestling room right now. So I'm doing some virtual lessons. I've been doing a couple of them with a father-son team, which is it's pretty interesting, and I think it gives a different kind of relationship that they have with the father because they have to work a little bit more together, and right. the father can be a helping hand, which I think the kids have appreciated. The other thing that I've seen with the virtual lessons, I think the kids pay a little bit better attention because they're just glued onto a phone or a computer screen, and there's not any other distractions around them. As a coach, as somebody that's teaching, you really have to zero in on right hand here, left hand here, right foot here, hips in there, and have to be pretty dynamic when you're teaching. But I found it to be really good, and it's helped the kids that I've been working with quite a bit. So it's
I was gonna say it probably actually. Go ahead.
Life has changed a lot for them, and life has changed a lot for me. With my RTC workouts, we're completely stopped right now. So what I'm doing with them mostly is they're continuing their lifting, but I'm sending them a ton of video. and making their minds work as much as they can, making them think about different positions. And someday it'll be a parterre day, another day it'll be a push-out day, another day will be an underhook day, another day will be shot improvement, another day will be snapping. So I'm trying to change those type of categories up, but I'm doing the same thing with my club, where on the Instagram account is I'm putting up wrestling video, almost every night. So they're getting a little bit different and it's high class wrestling, and it's freestyle. I'm going to be moving to some college stuff a little bit later on. It's just that I'm better prepared with the freestyle film and giving it to them. So,
yeah, it makes sense. And like you said, there's just so much you could be doing right now that kids, unfortunately, a lot of times they're not thinking about it. That's why they need that kind of private lesson where the coach who's seeing outside the box.
Yeah. So, the other thing I've tried to get them to concentrate on is eating better. Right. And that's something that my lifestyle is pretty crazy. I'm usually on the mats between 6 and 8 hours a day. So I travel between Lehigh and Randolph in between that. And I do that 6 days a week. And so I'm always eating on the road. And so I'm not getting, the best nutrition that I possibly can. And I feel my nutrition has improved a lot. And actually a former wrestler, Mark McLean, who has his own food business, has been giving me dinners every night. And so it's been awesome. I haven't eaten so well, probably since I've been at Blair. So, it's a little bit different. I'm sitting in the sun every morning, and that's, something I've told the kids to do a little bit with that. They have that opportunity to sit in the sun and get that vitamin D. There's just so many things that you can be doing better. Trying to keep your sleep patterns the same, not staying up all night playing the video games, or you're on your Instagram. So trying to focus on those ideas and trying to get it across to the kids.
Absolutely. It's so important. But again, it's just, if the kids aren't thinking about it outside the box, they're thinking restriction. There's not a lot I could do right now. But as you said, you just rattled off a host of things they could be doing.
Right. So I'm sure most clubs are doing it. Our Zoom classes have been, interesting and fun. And, trying to develop a core strength for those younger kids is something that we're making a push on. For the national team, we meet once a week and watch video and trying to keep up on the trends of what's happening across the world, and what is the new trend that's out there, and just trying to get ready for 2021 Olympics, which sounds weird.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, we do what we can. Now, I've always been curious, what do you tell your athletes getting them mentally ready in terms of relaxing under pressure, confidence, what they should be thinking about before a big match? Obviously, you've seen many big matches. You've coached, world champions, national champions. What do you tell them going into the event, how to approach the event as a whole, maybe not getting caught up in crowd or distractions, and then also right before they go out there and when they're out there competing?
Well, so, a lot of that is preparation.
Sure.
What you do all year is really important, and how you prepare all year is really important, and trying to stay on those regiments and doing what you need to do in practice training wise to prepare for the competition, and working on your strengths and working on your weaknesses, and trying to put yourself in the best positions that you can, that's good for you. Everybody's a little bit different.
Sure.
The way that in working with their psyche on it, everybody's different.
Sure.
So it's hard to find where that person's going to be at that moment. But if you're doing a routine that you do, all the time, and so, one thing that I did as a high school coach is I stuck to a routine of warming up, and made the kids in charge of their warm-ups. So when they got to a tournament or when they got to a dual meet, they knew how to warm up properly. They knew how to get their bodies prepared to wrestle. So that, I think, is a big mistake with the younger kids. They just don't know how to do that. And so I would I would give them a routine, or I'd change the routine up a little bit. But I felt it was always important that they knew how to get their bodies warm and how much they needed to do in live wrestling to prepare for that first match in the morning. So, that I felt was something that was really important. The other one is, you can see those guys, especially at the end of the year, that are dialed in. I mean, just dialed in. And that takes I think a special athlete. And, just this year in working with the Lehigh guys, they're in getting ready for the Easterns and then moving on to the NCAA tournament. There was this guy named Josh Humphreys that was dialed in. I was so excited to see this guy wrestle at the NCAA tournament because he got himself ready mentally for the Easterns, had a great Eastern tournament, beat Quincy in the finals pretty well. And then I was really excited to see the next step at the NCAA tournament because he was doing the right steps along the way. His diet was right. And then Nick Farrow was on the same page. Diet was right. Sleep was right. Preparation was right. Everything kind of fell in line for them to be dialed in and to get at that process. I think a lot is culture on your team, doing the right things throughout the year, and obviously getting the right technique. The other guy that I think of about being dialed in is Jordan Burroughs. And, watching him at the World Championships and the preparation. So, at 2011, I started working out at the OTC and watching this guy prepare is pretty amazing. Watching Kyle Dake prepare, incredibly. Jaden Cox, Kyle Snyder, just across the board, all these guys. But I would have bet the farm on last year's World that Jordan Burroughs was going to win. He was so dialed in. He was doing the correct things, at that time and preparing himself for his matches. He was putting himself in positions that he could win. His sleep was right. His diet was right. Everything was right. It was just 1.8 seconds he got hit with a push out to lose that match in the semifinals. But I thought at that point, there was nobody in the world that was going to beat him. And I was surprised. And as I told you, I would have bet the farm on it that this guy is going to win. I felt the same with Kyle Dake and Jaden Cox. They were so dialed in where they were mentally. They were so confident. And, it's amazing to see. And when you see it on high school athletes, going in at the end of the year and seeing these guys be dialed in because they did the right things along the way throughout the year, it's an amazing process.
Excellent. Now, I'm going to ask about, now you say about dialed in. What does the opposite of dialed in look like, where you could kind of tell you have an athlete who has a lot of talent, they're very good, they might even be a favorite, but you could see that there's something off. I'm sure you've seen this many times. What does it look like to not be dialed in?
So many times. So I'm not going to bring names up because I don't want to embarrass them, but I felt this to be one of the most difficult things in coaching. When you think that you've done everything right and your preparation has been good, your technique has been right on for that particular kid, their strength training has been good, their diet has been good. And then when they come to that finals match, they shut down. And the biggest part, I think, is fear and not being relaxed enough and not putting themselves in the same mindset that they would have when they were in practice or when they were in the semifinals. You could just see that they're nervous. And then, I'll look at them, I go, oh, man, this is not good. And you can see it in their eyes. You can see it the way that they're holding their bodies. And you're kind of hoping that there's something that you can do to snap them out of it. And for some guys, it's a different routine. With some guys, you have to, get in their face a little bit. They like to be, and I usually slap a guy right in the back of the neck just to alert them, to wake them up. And I do that to almost everybody. But some guys you have to calm them down a little bit, relax, be a little more lighthearted. And then the next guy, you got to get into their psyche a little bit to get them a little bit more fired up to get ready to go. So, I mean, it's different in every case. And I've had some where I felt that I can't get them out of this routine of losing in the finals. So that's when I go to get help from somebody else. And, we've tried hypnosis. We've tried a lot of those different techniques of trying to put them in a place where their mind is good and where they feel confident. And I've had to do it with a couple of guys where it's basically calming them down, putting their mind in the right area where they're stepping out on the mat and they're feeling confident. The one thing that I try to get across to people when they're competing is relaxing, staying calm, and the biggest thing is have fun. This is what you've been working for your whole life. And when you go out and relax and you're having fun, whether you win or you lose, you come off the mat and try to do as best that you can. That, to me, that's the most important thing. And the wins will come if you're nice and relaxed and you're trying to do everything you can do to be offensive. And some guys will shut that offense down and try to capitalize on the other guy's mistake instead of putting him into a position where he's going to make a mistake by putting the pressure on him or, not wearing this guy down enough in a certain situation or getting to what in our scouting reports to get into the right ties that you need to be in. So, there's a lot that goes in the process. And there are times where I've come out of this as a coach going, I don't know what to do anymore. I need some professional help right here because we've done everything right. And, that's when I turn it over to guys like you.
Yeah, absolutely. That's why we have a job. But it is very difficult. And just like you said, just like no two fingers on your hand are the same, no two kids are the same. There are some principles that do apply for everyone, but each athlete is very different. And a lot of what we do is just trying to help each individual find what works for them. So do you ever, to find out which kids need to be motivated or more relaxed, do you have conversations with them before the tournaments, even maybe before the year? Or is there any evaluation of, well, what did you do in the past when you competed well versus when you competed poorly? What was your energy level like on a scale of 1 to 10? What were you telling yourself? What did you eat? What was your warm-up like? So they could see it on paper, anything like that?
So you rehearse those situations. And if you don't rehearse them, you're not going to be sure how they're turning out. So, before, and so as an RTC athlete, we do match day every Friday. And sometimes I control those matches as much as I can. Other times I just let them roll out the way a normal match would happen. But, the one thing that I try to do where I see, desperation or I see panic, and I try to panic the athletes as much as I can, but it's hard to do in a practice situation. It's not like the real thing. But you try to put them in those type of situations. So a freestyle match is a 6-minute match. And sometimes what I'll do at the 4th minute, I'll have somebody down by 3 points and they have to work on, getting a takedown turn, takedown push out, something along those points, but to put them under that stress where they have 1 minute to do this in. And then I'll do it with 30 seconds, and then I'll do it with 15 seconds. But I try to do it at the end of matches when they're tired because people react a lot differently when they're fresh and then when they're tired. So I try to do it in a tired situation. And it's like when I had Steve Mockel on when I was coaching him for 2 years at Blair. This guy had an engine for a big man. And so in order to get him tired, I would rotate grown men on him in practice. And then I had to put up because he got so in good shape from that, I had to put a big wide pull-up bar, and we used to call it the Mockel bar, just to make him do pull-ups in between, just to tire him out. Right. The guy had a big engine, and the guy would really push hard at the end of the matches. So, trying to get people in those type of situations, I think is important. You know, what are you going to do on this single leg situation in this situation? And especially when you're tired, what are you going to do? So I think it's good to try to work those drills when people are in stressful situations, when they're in tired situations. But the other thing that I would do on match day, when I was in high school, when I was coaching in high school, is I would make them make a certain weight. So they would practice under, you know, just to see what they're even going to look like down close to weight. And you know, it was not in a rest off situation, but you know, the other thing too, put the singlet on. You know, the singlet feels weird. And you know, even at our club workouts, if it's during the folk style season, you have to wear your headgear. Get used to that guy. And so, you know, a lot of kids, you see them when they first are going is, you know, shaking their headgear. So trying to replicate a situation that seems to haunt kids is a hard situation to get them out of. And trying to recreate these in practice is something that I've always tried to do, sometimes with success, sometimes without success. You can't get them out of that bad habit, you know, of there's 30 seconds left in the match and they're winning. And why do they take a wild shot at that point? It's nerves. And, you know, it's for those offensive guys, that's all they know how to do. Instead of standing up there, blocking out with their head, getting into good hand fighting position, controlling wrists and elbows. Instead, they're up here reaching because they're just nervous. And why do people, and when they're in those situations, try to run away? Why do you do that? Don't do that.
Absolutely. No, that's great stuff. And when you create those match days, will you have teammates watch just so they get that performance anxiety competing in front of people?
I used to do something a little bit mentally tough. I forget what we called it. But at Blair, in the new room, we had 3 mats. And so in the middle mat, I had put the entire team around the circle of death. And so 2 guys would go out and wrestle. And so in getting ready for the Ironman tournament, the people are right down on the mat. And there are old ladies yelling at you. You know, I saw one time a friend of mine, the guy has passed away, but his name was Trench. He had an old lady squirt a bottle of water on him while he was coaching. And so the next time he came to the same chair, I brought an umbrella over to him. But these people are on top of you at the Ironman tournament. So I wanted the guys to get used to a loud situation, a hostile situation, and the kids were allowed to yell anything they wanted, but they couldn't say anything bad about their mothers. So it was trying to create a situation where they would get upset, and I refereed it, and I would really take it out on somebody. They were getting bad calls because you got to recover from bad calls. You can't be, you know, put yourself in a situation where, you know, you're feeling, oh, I got screwed. You know, it's the ref's fault. You know, you got to overcome a bad call. So, you know, I remember one time a guy was walking back slow to the center. I hit him for stalling. And he's going, what do you mean you're hitting me for stalling? 1 point misconduct. You know, just anything that I could do to upset him.
It's great.
So, you know, thinking of, you know, those ideas and, you know, the circle of death was, you know, a good one because you would not think that somebody would break in that situation. But when they get tired, crazy things happen.
Absolutely. Oh, that's great. And I love all of that. I think that's tremendous for the kids. I'll give you a few specific situations now. So scouting, how do you balance that where the kid doesn't get overly concerned with their opponent and now they're thinking too much about what they're going to do versus what they're doing? Because from my experience, what I've seen, the athletes that have come to us, for every one person scouting has helped, it's hurt 20. How do you balance that? Maybe it's different at higher levels. What do you think?
Well, one, I think it's important for a guy to see what another person does. That's one thing. For me as a coach, I'm trying to work on what's going to make them win and not focused on what the other guy does. So, you know, if you know that the guy has a great high crotch and he shoots with his right hand, we're going to try to tie that right hand up. But we're not going to say, wow, that guy's got a great high crotch. You better look out for it. Try to control the wrist. Don't let him get the shot off. And trying to put him in, and you got to put them in the situation or else they're not going to understand it. But try to make it so as positive and not building up the other guy so much about, oh, he does this really great. He's a great writer. And, and this is what you need to do on bottom to get out. And show him what the situation is and then work on that situation to get out. What he needs to do. Things that he needs to do in the match, not things to avoid.
That's good.
You need to, whether it's you got an underhook guy, you need to be blocking out on that underhook, working on your thumb blocks to the elbow, circling away from it, but get to this shot. And being positive on what they need to do instead of what the other guy is doing.
So more just bringing it up, more kind of like in passing, but now we're going to go to work working on this position, not dwelling on it.
So with the senior level athletes, they're different. You can say anything you want to them. They're grown men. They don't get their feelings hurt, and you have to be specific on what they need to key on and what they need to do in that match. Very important. Very important. With a high school kid, a lot of it is about educating them in the situation. So if we were getting ready for a certain team that did certain things, like Great Bridge was a great Granby team. So we would work on countering Granby's almost 3 to 4 weeks out. St. Ed's was a great shuck team. Not St. Ed's, Easton. They used to do slide-bys. Because the first time we got hit with it, one of our best kids got beat because he got slid by twice early in a match. And I wasn't ready for it. So, the next year we were ready for that type of situation. St. Ed's would try to collar tie and pull down on the head. Same with Graham. They were easy to get prepared for because they never came out. Every kid kind of did the same thing of pulling down. But there are certain things that high school kids need to learn, and you got to set these things out prior. And I would try to do it 3-4 weeks out instead of, hey, the day before, we got to get ready for this. So
that's a great point. 3 to 4 weeks out.
So in trying to working those drills into practice, so they were just like second nature for the younger kids. There's so many things that you're trying to teach in high school. There's so many facets that you're trying to deal with the sport. So I would take a calendar and try to write out things I wanted to prepare for during that year instead of trying to do it all at once. And that made it a little bit easier for me. Okay, so we don't wrestle this team. I can worry about this at this point. Just a way of organizing yourself a little bit and having a plan moving on.
Right. So would you want your kids, the athletes, to actually watch the video on the opponents, or would you recommend coaches more, they should do that homework and then they communicate it to the kid?
So not at high school. They don't even know what they're looking at. They watch a video. Oh, that was cool. And they're not keyed in. I think kids are better at that now because there's so much video available. When I was growing up, I learned wrestling from Bobby Douglas's book, and he had 1 or 2, and I used to look through that, and my brother and I would do the takedowns. Now they have all this stuff available to them, so I think that's why kids are at a different level than they were when I was in high school in the 60s and 70s. It's just a completely different. I remember the first time I saw wrestling on TV, it was like, wow, Dan Gable at the Olympics in '72. Or I would try to turn my antenna to get the Lehigh matches from Rhode Island and watching them fuzzy, trying to watch through the fuzz. It was a crazy situation in trying to watch wrestling, or getting amateur wrestling news and looking at the pictures and trying to figure out from the pictures, something that happened a month later. They got it right in front of them right now. So I think that's, I think it's acquiring that skill to watch video is really important. What you need to look at and how you need to look at it. what is this person doing? What trends are they doing? Is it a right leg lead or is it a left leg lead? Do they reach with this hand, that hand? I would say that would be more for the coach to look at, but I think it's always good to look at an opponent so you know what you need to prepare for.
Excellent. You brought it up before. First match of a tournament. I could go into any club, anywhere in the country, and ask, what's your worst match of a tournament? They always say the first match of the day. What have you seen to be the most success in dealing with that first match?
Warm up, proper warm up.
What's the timing look like? The timing for the warm up look like? How soon close to the match?
So generally it's an hour out. You start your warm up and you ease into it. And so like if it's a heavyweight and the tournament starts at 9 o'clock in the morning, that guy's not going to wrestle till noon. So there's no reason to get him warmed up at 9, but an hour out just to start to get his body warmed up, and then get him into some live wrestling. So and every kid will tell you this, that in practice their second match is better than their first match. So try to make your first match your second match of the tournament. Get your body prepared. The other thing that I hate to say it because it's kind of the underscoring thing in wrestling is your diet, and that you're eating the right foods after your weigh-ins. And I think that has a lot to do with, especially with high school kids. They go out and drink a Coca-Cola after they got off the scale and eating a chocolate bar. Getting the right foods into your body is really important. And how was the weight cut? And hopefully it wasn't a big weight cut but some kids are put in that situation that to make the team they got to do a little bit more of a weight cut, so more than they probably anticipated, or it was a bad week. So trying to understand all those facets. But I think the warm up is probably the biggest thing, and that's something that you need to test out as you're moving along in your career. And that's why I think match days are important. Are you ready to step out on the mat, and are you ready to wrestle? And like I said before, try to make your first match your second match.
And would you recommend them do a full match or a truncated match?
Yes. So maybe it's 3 1-minute goes. Maybe it's 30-second hand fighting 4 or 5 times. That's something that you need to figure out. Maybe you don't have to do a whole match, but you do need to get some live in there.
Excellent. Talk about energy management at a tournament. So you have the NCAA's 3-day tournament, New Jersey State's 3-day tournament. You spend a lot of time in your own mind, assuming you're in the championship bracket. What should they be focusing on? What should they be doing, not doing? Do you get out of the arena? What do you say?
Get out of the arena. There's no reason to stick around there all day. That's just going to tire you out. Go back to if you have an hotel, go back to the hotel. If you can get outside, get outside. Get some fresh air. If you can get some sunlight, get some sunlight. Those are all good things to do. Try to get something else to occupy your mind. Don't be afraid to, in those situations where, you only are wrestling 2 times that particular day, you're preparing for those 2 times. But if you get thrown in the loser's bracket, it's all hell. You got to go 5 or 6 times. That's one thing, coaching a bunch of good kids, they only have to wrestle a certain amount of matches, and then you can get them out of the facility, bring them back to the hotel, or go somewhere where they can relax, listen to some music, but just to get out of the arena, or even sleep. If they can sleep at the arena. With that state tournament, I wouldn't have a guy there watching the entire day, or at the NCAA tournament watching all those other matches, because that just gets you geared up. Of course you want to follow your teammates, but at those times, it's time to be a little bit selfish, and you need to focus on yourself and get ready for yourself.
Yeah, we've even seen that at dual meets. if you're coming up and your teammates are wrestling, you don't necessarily want to be on the edge of the mat because they're not listening to you anyway. They're supposed to be listening to the coach, and you're thinking about the team score. You're thinking of, the athlete who's warming up is looking at the team score, watching the match, the racing thoughts, your stomach's going up and down. Your best way to help the team is to get yourself mentally and physically ready. Would you agree?
I would agree. So, but I also like the team camaraderie also. After you wrestle, and the one thing that I tried to do from being a high school coach is the only kids that could wear the headphones were the guys coming up to wrestle. They could listen to their music.
Right.
After they were done, they got to be good teammates and cheering their guys on. That's just good team camaraderie and developing team camaraderie, I think, is something that can influence one of your not so strong kids to move up a level. Having the support of their friends and their teammates is, I think, huge. So I wouldn't want them to be sitting on the bench, looking at a cell phone or playing with their music, to be focused on what's happening, and that's supporting your teammates.
Absolutely. And talk a little bit about peaking. Again, you've worked with some of the very best in the country, some of the very best in the world. What do you see common trends? Again, every kid is a little bit different. What are some things you see they have in common as they're gearing up towards, I don't like to call them bigger tournaments or smaller tournaments, but, at the end of the year, what they've been training for?
Recovery, sleep. I used to work with Team New Jersey, and they would have a training camp, 2 weeks outside of Fargo, or maybe a week outside of Fargo, and they would bring the kids in, and I'm just going, stop the madness. If you haven't done the work before now, it's too late. But they were killing the kids at that point. They're doing 4 workouts a day. I think that was something that was fixed as time moved on. But I think that happens commonly out in a lot of states where, they bring these guys together and, 1 week out to go to Fargo, and they just crush the kids. At that point, things need to be slowed down. The live wrestling doesn't need to happen. So we would hit, when I was at Blair, we would hit the Ironman Beast, and then maybe Powerade, maybe the Liberty tournament. But it was 3 weekends in a row that we were hitting top competition. And the weeks in between those tournaments were actually rest times, recovering, working on mistakes, maintaining their diet. It wasn't a grind out situation, and the same in preparing up towards those tournaments. And it was unfortunate that your biggest tournaments of the year occurred in December. So you had to get the kids prepared for December to win a national title sometimes, or it would come later in the year. But the rest in between those matches, I think, were important. And so I set up a schedule that we only wrestled on the weekends. So there wasn't the make weight Tuesday wrestle, make weight Thursday wrestle, make weight Saturday wrestle. That kills you. I mean, that's a long week, making weight 3 times and competing 3 times. So I tried to make it so we only wrestled on the weekends. Sometimes there were dual tournaments where I bring 45 kids to go wrestle and share the wealth with the entire team. But the important part was to do your training and then calm your training down a little bit and just focus on being sharp, knowing what you need to do in those matches. And, for like the end of the year or coming up on the Ironman, our practice would probably be an hour long, no longer than that. And, not having a grueling 3-hour practice one week from the States just doesn't make any sense to me. It just wears the kids down, where you want them to be as sharp, have as much energy as possible. And your build has to happen throughout the season sometimes. Sometimes you train through matches. sometimes the kids would say to me, "Why are we going so hard?" Don't worry about it. You got to trust me right now. We're training through this match in preparation for what we're doing here. And, for the most part, I would say that I've been lucky. I have athletes that have trusted me 100% and believed what I was doing. Going through that cycle of preparation, you kind of get yourself in a routine. And I think those routines are important, and kids understand routines. But, trying to, at the end of the year, we need to get those extra workouts in. No, you don't need to get those extra workouts in. The preparation the hay's already in the barn, right? The preparation is already done. It's about being, I think, well rested, and especially at that end of the year, you're really excited about the situation that you're in. If you're coming to the end of the year and you're dragging and you're tired and you can't wait for the season to get over, that's when you're going to have failure. I think getting to the end of the year and that built-up excitement of that Josh Humphreys dialed in, everything has gone right, coming up to the NCAA tournament is going to be, a fabulous thing. That's what I think you're working for. Absolutely.
And how far out should they be tapering? 1 week, 2 weeks?
I usually would do the start. If I was coming down to the end of the year, it was almost a week and a half to 2 weeks where I'd start tapering it down. Definitely the last week was a pretty light week, but I would still work in live wrestling during that last week, but it would be shorter situations, and they would try to avoid positions or situations where guys can get hurt. So I would change it up to maybe some hand fighting matches. I would change it up to, maybe some 30-second goes, trying to do whistle starts a little bit more. One match, so I'm going to be out of shape by that time. So they believe that they're going to be still in shape.
Excellent. And then during that taper period, is there anything specific you're telling them to do where it's, I don't know, maybe massages, more stretching, not thinking of wrestling the whole night, possibly? Anything like that?
I try to keep routines. If massage is part of their routine, then massage. But, that's something that I think guys should be doing all the time. It's probably misunderstood a little bit on the high school level, but on the college level, or even more on the senior level, there's a lot of massage work. So out at the OTC, or when we go to travel for the World Championships, or even any of the ranking tournaments, there's usually a massage as well as a chiropractor along on those trips. So for those guys, it's incredibly effective for them, being relaxed, having their muscles loose. Guys love that.
Yeah. So basically what you're saying is just being consistent with it. If you're normally a sauna guy, if it's legal for you, sauna, ice bath, whatever it is, cryotherapy.
The saunas has been, probably misused a lot, but those are great for recovery and getting the toxins out of your bodies. And it's used, frequently by the senior level athletes. How
about ice baths and cryotherapy?
Yeah. Those are great recoveries, and for recovery days, that's actually what guys will do. They might do a steam and then right into the ice pool. Those are effective ways to get toxins, to get the inflammation out of the body. And for high performance, that's what you need. It's perfect. And I saw somebody write visualization there. I think this is something that all really good wrestlers can do really well. And maybe because they've trained their minds that way all through their lives, I think it's a really important thing. And working with younger kids, I even try to get them to visualize themselves on the podium, getting their hand, standing on the top of the podium, or at the end of the match, getting their hand raised, because that's all what you're working for. But to also visualize perfect technique, you know, see yourself and knowing what your left hand's doing, your right hand's doing, your foot, your knees, your hips. And it's an important and I think a crucial part of even your training. For me, it's easy. I don't know why. You know, I visualize incredibly well, especially if I see something and then I try to replicate it. For some reason, I have a good way of doing that. And maybe it's because I watch so much video that, you know, I see something and I go, wow, that was cool. You know, let's try to, you know, recreate that in the practice room. So, I mean, I think that's something that's very important.
Absolutely. We usually recommend visualizing four different things. So before the match, just so you have that confidence, you know you're going to feel good going into it. You're self-dominating your ideal performance, visualizing handling mistakes or things not going so well. Yep. And then also, like you said, being on that podium, getting that medal, getting your hand raised, running off, seeing your parents, all that stuff, teammates, coaches.
Yeah, I probably didn't emphasize that enough. But and didn't really call it a visualization, but the fact of, you know, looking at and preparing mentally for a match of positive things that you're going to do, and not thinking, what am I going to do to lose this match, but more thinking about what I need to do to win this match, what positions do I need to get into, and thinking in that direction of thinking what techniques that I need to do, and you look at the best guys in the world or the best guys at the NCAA level, they always put themselves in positions that they can win. And it's important that they wrestle that type of match. You know, there are some guys that are really good at funking, so they're going to put themselves in that type of match, and where another guy is not very good at that, try to avoid those type of situations.
Excellent. Excellent. Parenting. I'm sure you've seen it, you know, coaching some of the best, seeing that there's some situations where parents ruin the kid's career. Well, they make them hate wrestling or hate them. What can parents do concretely to support their kid and to help their career and at least not themselves be the problem?
So, I mean, I'm a parent. And actually, I had a crazy situation with my own kids. Not only was to my son, I was his coach, but I was also his geometry teacher.
Oh.
So my daughter, I was her college algebra teacher. So I've coached my kids and I've taught my kids. And wow. For me, they've been incredibly good experiences. So good. And, you know, part of it in working with my son, he was around it his whole life. So, you know, he grew up in a wrestling room. He got ringworm like when he was 1 year old. And when he came home one time, I got yelled at. So, you know, those were, you know, he grew up around the sport. So me as a parent and him coming in and me being his coach for all the time, I stayed away from him. He came up and he had a conversation with me and he said, "Why aren't you coaching me?" And I said, I want to watch you. I don't want to be your coach. I want to be your dad. And he goes, "Well, I want you to be my coach and my dad." So it was an agreement between him and I. And one thing that we tried to do was not talk wrestling in the house. So when we came home, there was no talk of wrestling. And that, you know, one time he came to me and he was asking me questions. We had to go stand out on the front yard for me to answer those questions. But, you know, it was something that that worked out really well. I would get more excited when he would wrestle. My heart rate would go up. My blood pressure would go up. I would feel all those things. But I would try not to be stupid and try to say the right things to him. And the one thing that I always said to him was, "I'm proud of you and I love you." That's the way to go out and compete. And that's one thing that he did. He was a first guy in the room and a last guy to leave the room. He loved the sport. He loved being around the sport. And I think part of that was the relationship that we had. It was very positive. It was one where he liked to learn technique. which, was something that I was really big on. So, I think it was really good. And I know he felt the pressure of being my son, and everybody in the gym wanted him to lose every match because he was my son. So, he felt those kind of pressures, but he handled them really well. Eventually went on to Harvard and wrestling at Harvard, had to stop wrestling because of concussions, which was, really a difficult thing for him. And, he's asking me, how many concussions have you had? And I said, we're not going to talk about that because it was a different time. I wore a football helmet that had rope suspension in it. I got knocked out almost every game because my helmet was a weapon. And so, you learn things as you move along. And being a good parent, I think, is important for a wrestler, and trying to be as positive as you can and trying to support them in a positive way is really important. Not getting on them about, hey, you need to do this, you need to do that. That should be the coach's job, but, trying to give them the opportunity to be in the best situation that they can, I think, is important parenting. If somebody doesn't want to do it and you try to push them into it, it's not going to work out. And I think that's why I had such a good relationship with my son as far as wrestling. It was his idea always. And, when he was, I want to say in the second or third grade, he wanted to start wrestling. So I'd bring him to wrestling practice, and I would sit over on the bleachers. And then he wanted to go to Red Hawk, so I'd bring him to Red Hawk. And, I'd go sit in the back and grade papers. And so, I've been around those parents. I've had some really rough parents. And I've tried to educate my parents as best that I could in explaining to them what the process was going to be throughout the year, what our culture was going to be on our team, what I expected from them, what I demanded from them. And this is going to be our cycle of training. Here's what we're going to do, and let me be the coach. So that, that's a hard break for a lot of kids moving from junior high into high school and working with their kids. There's usually a better separation in college when that happens, but there's still, that overbearing parent that, is the helicopter parent that's trying to manipulate everything that they can do. If they can let them go and do things on their own, like they do in just about everything else they do in life, they'll find that they're going to be able to succeed a little bit better, but provide the opportunity for them to be in that situation. For my son, he said, I didn't say, you need to go to this wrestling club. He said to me, I want to go to Red Hawk. All right, let's get in the car. Let's go. Instead of, you have to go to this club for this reason. I said, I like the guy there. He's going to teach you good things. And I think staying at one place and getting that system in is important for you. Then when he was moving up, he started in seventh grade. He wanted to start training with some of the Blair guys, and I allowed him to do that because it was his idea. Eighth grade, the same thing. He got, went out to Fargo and, had his first experience. And that was probably the biggest tournament that he'd ever wrestled in before. He didn't do the circuit like a lot of other kids have done. Sometimes, doing those 100 matches a year are just, you keep pulling that cord, it's going to break sometime. And sometimes I think kids are over wrestling right now, and they're not taking some time off. As me growing up, I was a 3-sport athlete. In college, I played 2 sports. That was the times back then. Knowing when to specialize is an important thing. And, guys specializing at a young age, I'm not sure is the right thing. But being involved in trying to learn a sport, I think is really important. So, not that pressure of, trying to hit it hard throughout an entire year is tough. And kind of why I like what's going on. If you want to look at a positive thing, what's going on right now is kids are off the mat, they're relaxed, and they're so eager to get back right now. Everybody's biting at the bit to get on the mats. And, for me, I'm going to take my time coming back. I can start in June 4th in the state of Pennsylvania with my RTC athletes because we moved to yellow at that point, we can move to phase 3 in the return to practice, that are guidelines that are set up by USA Wrestling to do practices where they have to be maintaining the social distancing. So it's moving into a 14-day cycle to another phase of wrestling. So I think that's the way the sport's got to come back right now. Everybody's in a rush to come back. It's going to be interesting to see how this thing out in Oklahoma works out. I'm interested to see how, what kind of effects it's going to have. I wouldn't do it personally, but Eric felt it was important that they did something at this point, but we're going to learn from that. We're going to learn from this business coalition down in that want to start their businesses up right now. What's going to happen? But I'm not going to do it at our club right now because I don't want to put anybody in jeopardy. I don't want to see anybody get sick. And I'm saying at this point, why do it? This is a good time to recover. This is a good time to get your mind right. This is a good time to enjoy, life.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I think it's going to kick
for a positive.
That's right. Keep it positive. I think this is going to kick us off at 8:30. Last question I have for you. What does American wrestling need to do to consistently start beating Russia?
Wrestle more freestyle. That's what it comes down to. We don't know the sport as well as they do. And I think the RTCs have been really influential in pushing out what the proper technique, especially in parterre position, and being able to handle situations like chest locks offensively and defensively. It's just a different style. And having the understanding of where you need to be in certain positions is important. It's different than folk style. You can shoot with your head down in folk style and still be successful, but not in freestyle. You're going to get turned. And that's why I like freestyle, because it teaches kids to get their hips in, to work on driving across on people. And it's going to work on folk style or freestyle, the push out situation. So I think that the RTCs have been really a productive part of influencing America, weeding down into the younger ranks where, kids are learning how to ankle lace at a younger age, learning how to gut wrench at a younger leg, learning how to do a chest lock at a younger age. So being put in those skilled positions is really important to, I think, in generating our knowledge. And I think getting that feel where we're having success on cadet and a junior level, getting those guys overseas. I don't want to go overseas right now. I'm afraid I'll get locked in Dagestan for like 6 months. I don't want to do it. But, when the time is right to travel overseas. I mean, I've been to Dagestan. I've been to Ossetia. I consider those the 2 best places in the world. And I've watched their kids wrestle. And what they're doing in practice are really athletic things. And the way that I think that you can improve kids is trying to make them better athletes and giving them those type of skills to become a better athlete. And that's why I like this functional patterns. I think that is, something that you need to incorporate in your weightlifting, because I do think it will make them, better athletes moving forward.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. Back when I was in high school, my brothers and I were young up-and-comers, probably around 2000, 2001. We used to train at Rawway. We used to train at Rawway High School in the summertime with Fred Stuber, another
awesome
local
guy.
legend. And we asked him back in high school around 2000, 2001. I think my dad asked him, who's the best coach in the state of New Jersey? And he said, Jeff Buxton. And he said, who's the second best coach? And he said, his assistants. So he said, it's going to be tough to beat Blair.
I don't know about that, but
we went a lot longer than I normally do. But if I have a legend on here speaking live, I'm going to capitalize on every single second that Instagram gives me. Thank you so much for all your answers. This is incredibly helpful.
I didn't realize we're on for an hour.
We could have gone longer.
I didn't realize we're on for an hour.
Thank you,
all
Coach.
right,
Take care. Stay safe.
You're welcome.
Bye.
Yep. Bye.